What's going on, guys? We're running it back with another replay here. We've got a Dark Elves versus Beastmen showdown on a very big map. Oasis of Zedri, I believe is the name of this map. It's huge. It's got a pretty interesting setup, too. It's got two home objectives, but they're decently close to one another. There really isn't that far of a distance to travel, so you can do some pretty fun pushes there. Got some very aggressive vanguards and deploy zones up to the middle. They are pretty deep set. The Vanguard's pretty close, but the actual deployment zone's pretty far back, so very favorable for Beastmen, obviously. Beastmen having a ton of Vanguard in their army. That's one of the reasons why they're so strong in domination mode, in particular, is Beastmen just have amazing mobility, and you can absolutely overwhelm your opponent with just sheer ferocity. Part of the reason why I've been playing them a little bit more lately, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. I've been playing a lot of Khorne. I feel a little stale playing them right now, so Beastmen are going to be my new main until we get some DLC for Khorne, which is going to be a little while, so just swapping it up for what I'm usually going to be playing. Malagor the Dark Omen in the Sky, just one of the best lords in terms of sheer value. Really cheap, only 1,200 gold with the kit he's got now, which just has Flock of Doom and the Unholy Power, so he gets those Flocks of Doom off more regularly. Big damage with that here in the early going. It doesn't show up in the damage value either, which is kind of odd, but he got 163 gold damage in terms of value, as you can see there in the tooltip, which is very cost efficient. You want to get like 40, 50 gold for every Winds of Magic you cast. This is pretty cheap, so not the worst situation there for me. GoreBulls, they're going to be moving up. I've got some Ungor Raiders, and Ungor Spearherd are really all you need for an initial front line more often than not. Maybe mix in a Zangor or Pestigor too, nothing too crazy. Bringing up some Razor Gores. Razor Gores are a nightmare unit, honestly, for your opponent. They have a crazy high charge bonus with really good weapon strength, and they just slam home against anything and absolutely wreck them. It's pretty impressive how good these little piggies are. We've got a Supreme Sorceress of Fire looking to use Burning Head, Whale of Malice on the ROR, Siren of Red Ruin, Medusa. This is a build that Harrison has beat me with before, and my build is a little different from the last time we played this matchup. Instead of having just one Razor Gore, I've got two Razor Gore chariots here, and you're going to see just how effective these things can be. They're a very fun unit. GoreBulls, President Al GoreBull is moving up. They're going to be looking to get after the Siren of Red Ruin. They do need to be careful of the Dark Shards. Dark Shard Focus Fire will absolutely nuke these guys, and I am going to do a little bit of dodging here. But mostly Harrison's just focusing on shooting down my Ungor Spears right now, which isn't too terrible for me. Malagor, I think I was trying to get him in to cast another Flock of Doom. A little bit incautious, though, getting up, and the Supreme Sorceress does land here to smack into some Ungor Spears, but they're going to put a little bit of damage in on her. They do have the anti-large bonus there. It is decent at 12. Chipping in at her 46 melee defense. She does have 90 armor, very durable combat lord here. But you can see she's taking quite a bit of work, actually. About 600 damage just from fighting these Ungors. And the reason that they're still hanging in here is because of that Primal Fury. They probably would have terror routed immediately if they didn't have that immune to psychology for as long as they did. Nice Burning Head coming in here, gonna roast some of these Ungors and trying to make a decision about how to get these guys out. And I just used the Razor Gores to go right through the heart of the formation and open up a little lane for the GoreBulls to push in. And they just get right in there on top of the Siren of Red Ruin. Excuse me, guys. Now, the Siren of Red Ruin did pop the Whale of Malice, and it did some pretty ferocious damage to the Razor Gore chariots here, as you can see. Down to about half health in these guys, but I've traded pretty efficiently. I mean, I've run over, basically half of a Dark Rider unit, half a Dark Shard's dead. The Razor Gores here, they're a little trapped up, but they should be able to get free. Shouldn't be too terribly difficult for them. They do good collision damage as they're going out, as long as you have them charging into stuff. you can see just how capable they are when they plow into formations at doing damage, man. I mean, they are ferocious combatants, these little Gores. Malagor is going to actually dive back here and go after the Siren. Dark Riders do intercept and push him back a little bit. Malagor is a small combatant, so he is actually pretty good in melee combat against unarmored targets. He's got 55, 45, and 400 base weapon strength. 135 of that is AP. So, you know, it could be a little bit better, but still quite capable, and just dropping more Flocks of Doom and racking up the value here in the early going. Mino's coming out. Mino's actually run over the Cold One Knights and help out the other Razor Gore herd. I'm not sure where they've gotten to. Quite tattered at this stage, but just getting really aggressive with the mobility right now. I've got some Gore herd that have moved up onto the side objective as well. Fighting Dread Spears and Black Ark Corsairs, hanging in there with the decent leadership and good combat stats, really good weapon strength on those guys. Mino's moving across, man. They've gotten rid of some of the mobility for the Dark Elves here. Centaurs help mop up the Dark Shards here. We've just got a big core of Cold One Knights trying to shut down my Razor Gores. Razor Gores being very disruptive. Very hard to cover everything going on across the battlefield right now. Using the GoreBulls just to push around. They've been pushing back a lot of these very tattered routing units and really chipping them down very capably as they've been going along. They've gotten some pretty good attacks in there, getting some kills. Nothing crazy in terms of value on these guys, but they're very healthy. And as I said, they push back a lot of infantry. Quite a fair distance, so not a lot of buffering for the mobility here in the middle. Ungor Raiders, they've been firing their bows. They've been chipping away at some of the Cold One Knights, at the Dread Spears when they've been locked in combat. More Flocks of Doom coming in from Malagor. Malagor being an absolute nightmare here for the Dark Elves. A really nice Burning Head roasts out my Ungor Raiders here. It does miss the other one pretty nicely for me. And the Razor Gore Chariots, they've got high enough armor, they don't care about rolling through that. They'll just keep going. Another Razor Gore Chariot here looking to get some stuff done, and yeah, that Tears of Nurgle going off right now. Really nice for me. Spreading to a lot of the units here, locking the Cold One Riders from being able to catch my Razor Gores while my micro is elsewhere. I am back here using the GoreBulls just to menace everything, and Minos are back here too. At this stage, Minos being in the backline honestly isn't the worst thing in the world. If Harrison brings out a Cold One Knight or even Dark Riders, these Minotaurs are going to rip them to pieces, man. They're a great unit at clearing chaff cavalry. I don't like to over-rely on Minos. This isn't Khorne after all. Khorne is very reliant on Minos to do a lot of different things. Beastmen have a lot of great tools, though. They really aren't nearly as dependent. Centaur is getting pushed back here. They've gotten 967 value. Very cost-effective. Goreherd did get finished off, but they got some great value as well, and just more Sentis coming out in this mid-stage of the game. Razor Gore herds helping to clean up the last of these Cold One Knights who have gotten okay value, but nothing stupendous. Razor Gore is just providing some mass and being annoying. And the Minos and the GoreBulls in the backfield just ripping everything apart, man. The Dread Spears very beat up. They're getting a little bit of damage on Vice President GoreBull here. He's just beating the crap out of these guys, though. And definitely going to go and help out the other Mino here in a moment. His fellow GoreBull chasing the Siren of Red Ruin very capably. Just keeping Harrison from being able to use this thing has been really great for me. His mobility has been very wrapped up elsewhere on the battlefield and hasn't really been able to just get in and lock the GoreBulls in combat and just slowly work them down. The Razor Gores and the Minos have also really helped me in that regard. They've just been able to get in on a lot of different areas of the battlefield and just rip into stuff, you know? I mean, they're just so nice to have. They do big burst damage, they open up massive holes in front lines, and look at the damage to these Witch Elves. Flattening this unit, taking them down to less than half health in no time flat. Now, the Witch Elves do pop Witch Brew. And with their absolutely ridiculous stats now, you know, they have Murderous Mastery and Witch Brew active at the same time. Murderous Mastery will wear off soon, but even with that, I mean, just the stats and the weapon strength on these guys, absolutely ripping apart one of the Razor Gores. But these Razor Gores have done more than enough work at this stage. And I'm very happy with their performance so far. Malagor is caught by the Crows of Cain, which is very unfortunate. Crows of Cain very good at ripping him apart, so trying to get him out of there. He's a little trapped up, though, and I'm a little worried now. He's struggling really badly, but Siren of Red Ruin, we're getting a good pick on this thing. It just can't get away. Just hounding after it relentlessly. And, you know, it's got the wounds profile, and GoreBulls are fast as hell, man. They've got 64 speed at base. So, faster than the Siren is, even. So, Harrison really, I hesitate to say making a mistake. The Siren is really good in this matchup. It can do amazing work. Can even fight the GoreBulls, because it is a anti-large duelist, but needed to protect it a little better with the Supreme Sorceress countercharging. Wild Riders probably needed to come in and lock down GoreBulls a little bit, while Cold One Knights could come in and replace and surround those guys and just wear them down. Probably would have been the best answer. Now the GoreBulls looking to get after the Supreme Sorceress of Fire. Supreme Sorceress was doing some work, man. 348 kills, 1900 value. All of my infantry has pretty much died to her. I do have some Zangors and some Gore Herds that were fighting over the home objective here that were doing pretty nicely for themselves. They weren't doing too badly. Centaurs of Tzeentch, they got beat up pretty badly by some Dread Spears. I kept them in combat a little too long. I've just had so much to do. It's so chaotic on this battlefield. It's such a big field, too. And stretching your opponent's micro as much as you possibly can is almost always going to work in your favor as a Beastman player. Just because your units, if you do lose attention on some of your units for a little while, at the very least, they're going to be faster than just about everything else in the field, and you can pull them out of combat a little bit better. Like, the issue that the Dark Elves are running into is that their Dark Riders and everything, they're doing okay. They're not performing horrendously. But I've just got a little bit better opportunity jumping around the battlefield, attacking objectives, and forcing Harrison to respond to me in areas where he's really just not able to make it happen. You can see Pestigor's over here not getting great value. There have been quite a few inefficiencies in my build, but keeping it even as Beastmen. Missing a charge there also. Zangor's moving up. They're going to help lock this point down. They're getting into combat. Even with those inefficiencies, keeping a little bit of a value lead is all you really need is the Beastmen. If your opponent does not have healing magic and you're even on value or a little bit ahead, you are absolutely dominating the field. Your opponent's infantry is going to be very slow responding. If you just drag your opponents apart as Beastmen, you are honestly probably never going to lose a matchup like this, where you've just got the mobility advantage, you've got a horde of very cost-effective units out on the field. These Minotaurs, man, have been absolutely ripping Dark Riders apart. Centaurs and Centaurs of Tzeentch chasing down the remainder of this Dark Rider unit, and they're really not going to be able to get away. Centaurs are a little slower without the Primal Fury active, but they do have Perfect Vigor, so they're always going to be able to keep up decently. And they're just going to drag units like that down as they try to retreat. You can just keep up the pressure a lot better. And you really need your infantry formations to stay intact and hold objectives like fully and wholly with like an entire unit of like a proper formation. You know, like the Dark Shards, I think, weren't a bad idea. I actually do think they might be pretty good in this matchup. They can hammer down some of the heavily armored Beastman units. They can actually do crazy damage to Razor Gores. I just got a really good jump at the beginning of this battle, wrecking the front line and pushing right into the back, with the GoreBulls able to follow up the routes on the Dark Shards and just push them way back to where they couldn't support anymore. I think with a little bit more focus on locking down the disruptive mobility I had in the early game, I think Harrison would be in a pretty good position right now. You can see I'm up about 1300 value. I'm using the GoreBulls just to chase the Supreme Sorceress. Minotaur's still going, dude. They've been out here for like the whole match at this point. pulling out of combat with the Dread Spears. I'm going to keep them back here just waiting for an opportunity to jump on either the Supreme Sorceress or any mobility that might come out. Goreherd coming in to replace these tattered Zangors at the perfect time. They just moved right up from this Vanguard. Whoops. Wrong button. They just moved right out from this Vanguard and got right up here. Having Vanguard on a lot of your infantry is really wonderful, and, you know, Beastmen are fast as hell, man. They've got that Primal Fury, putting their infantry up to 42 speed, and look at the Goreherd just body these poor Witch Elves. Witch Elves trying to push onto the objective, same with the Dread Spears, and when units are doing that, and they're, like, trying to force path through units, that's when they're taking ridiculous amounts of damage. It's really, honestly, not worth it, more often than not, to try and do that. You might as well just value trade and try and grind through your opponent and find a way back into the value trade game to take the game over. You know, points are incredibly important. You can win on objectives, but there are limits to that for sure. And Harrison is in a very negative combat space right now with the position he's in. I mean, I've just got so many units in his literal back lines, and he's responding by sending Dark Riders to the back objective. I've got Razor Gores coming out, some rallying Sentis all across the field just responding. You can see the mobility being so nice for Beastmen. Just gonna block the charges. The Siren of Red Ruin does shatter, and I do save my objective entirely. And here you go, just a massacre of some Dark Riders at the end here. Before the bell tolls for the poor Dark Elves. Look at that. Piggies. Bulls on parade back here, man. Centaur's running over some more Dark Riders. GoreBull supporting, giving some encourage. They actually boost leadership a little bit, as well as just being good combatants. You can see helping those Razor Gores out against the Dark Riders and the Dread Spears and breaking that position. Just a full rout for the Dark Elves at this stage of the game. But really well played by Harrison in a lot of respects. That Lord was an absolute nightmare for me. 2600 value is really good. With a little bit of a better performance from the front line, I think the Dark Elves would have been in a much more dominant position. And just protecting the Siren of Red Ruin with the Cold One Knights, like just fully committing to keeping it alive would have been awesome. That Siren would have been able to do some pretty good damage with its little laser eyes stare. It can do decent damage to Minos and Razor Gores, Centaurs. It's excellent against infantry. That's where it really shines, but even against other targets, it can still do a little bit of appreciable chip damage. I think that would have made a big difference for Harrison over the course of the entire game. These Witch Elves, they got 1100 value. They did come out twice, though. They got absolutely flattened the first time around, but Second Life, they did chew up some Zangors really nicely, and I guess they did help finish off a Razor Gore. Witch Elves are really good in this matchup. Using those guys just as pure DPS units is honestly not a bad idea. I'm curious how Sisters of Slaughter are here. Sisters of Slaughter, I believe, have expert charge defense, and they have crazy good melee defense. They might be pretty decent against the Beastmen forces. Now, they would be really vulnerable to Ungor Raiders, though. I will say that, but with a Burning Headcaster, you can probably just obliterate the Ungors. But then you've still got the Razor Gore Chariots to deal with, and these guys, 1600 and 1300 value, 220 kills, 158 here. Malagor with 1600 value. GoreBulls pretty much paying for themselves. This guy did a little bit better than the other, but they only cost 1050 with nothing on them. And that's more than enough for them to still do work. They just have such a good combat profile. They've got 30 bonus versus large. They've got decent melee attack at base with good weapon strength. 450, I believe, which is pretty gnarly for a combat character that costs 1050. They may not be like Dragon Slayers pre-nerf levels of ridiculous, but they're certainly up there in terms of efficiency against large targets. Alright, that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope y'all have enjoyed. I'll see you next time. GG's and peace.